So you've done this before. This should be review. I'm going to do the left. Your homework will be the right. And then we're going to do the second page and the homework will be the right. Okay. It's all review, but I feel like it's one of those things, exponents, you either totally get the game or you're overwhelmed by the game. So I'm going to teach it as if you haven't learned it before. Remember, you can put the speed on 2.0 if this is totally no problem for you. Okay? So I want you to get that when you're multiplying, it really means you're adding. So what does that mean? If I have x to the a times x to the b, it really means you're adding. I should make that an x. Okay? All right. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I see a here, so I have 8 of them. And I have 7 b's. And then I have the number 7 there. And that's it. So in a sense, I feel like when you're dealing with this, you're almost counting, which to me is like adding. All right, let's look at number 3, because remember, I'm doing the odds, you're going to do the evens for homework. So how many x's do I have? I have 9, I have 11 x's, and I have 3 y's. Now, the key that I need you to get is that when you're doing this, these are regular numbers. So you multiply regular numbers. I'm going to put that in pink because I feel like that's people's biggest mistake. They go, okay, well, I add the littles, so I add the bigs. No, you multiply the littles. Here, let me rewrite that there. You multiply the littles and you add the bigs. Okay? So I'm going to put that in pink because that's one set of rules, and that's it right there. But you can't see that. Let me move it down. Okay? Let me move this back a little bit to help that. Sorry. All right. Let's do number 5. Now there's another set of rules. The other set of rules says this. If you have x to the a to the b, it really means you multiply them. It's going to get in focus, I promise. So in other words, when I have parentheses, it means I multiply. Okay? When I'm dealing with exponents, this is about exponents, okay? So what does that mean? Now, if you look here, I'm going to go 7 to the 9, and that'll give me 63. I don't think that's what the issue is. The problem is the -2 is next to the a. It's not the same thing. It's pretty much like, let's see, I don't have any paper here. It means -2 times a, which you can't see that. So that means that if I have this, I need to give it to this and to give it to this, because when you have parentheses, what does it mean? You distribute, okay? So I distribute that, but I also have to distribute it to here. Now, anytime I'm dealing with a negative, I put it in parentheses. So now I'm going to have to go -2 times -2 times -2 times -2 times -2 times -2. Now, I know that when something, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, go here. When something is taken to the odd power, it stays negative, because a negative and negative, positive, negative, negative, positive, negative, negative, positive, boom, negative. And then 2 times 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128. Hopefully I did that right. I went a little bit fast. But you can use your calculator. Okay? This is the same thing. I don't like that it's to the 7th, but whatever. Let's make it to the 6th. I'm going to change that to the 6th. Okay, so I'm going to put this, that was parentheses, and I change that to a 6. So now I distribute that. That's y to the 60, and it means -2 to the 6th power. Now we know if we're taking it an even amount of times, it's going to turn positive. And I know that if that's 128, that's half of it, because it's multiplying by 2. The last type you're going to do is dividing. And it says x to the a over x to the b equals x to the a minus b. Okay? So when you're dividing, you're going to be subtracting. Now, I don't like saying subtracting because you can't have negative exponents. So I like to ask if there's more on top or more on bottom. All right. Now let's start here. So let's look. I have 4 y's on top and 2 on the bottom, so I have 2 more on the top. Let me show you what I mean by that. If I lay that out, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 5, I have 2 more on the top. Now I want to point out if I had y, 1, 2, 3, 4, then that would be gone and that would be gone. I'd be left with 1 over y squared. Now some of you go, but Miss Rifkin, why don't you just subtract? I could subtract, but then I get a negative number, And I don't know if you remembered from last year, you can't have negative answers, so you'd move it to the bottom. Look at all that work when you can just go, hey, 2 on top, 4 on the bottom, there's 2 more on the bottom. That's the easiest for me. I don't care. Pick the way you want to do it. Just get the right answer. All right. So now let's look. I only have x's on the bottom, and then I divide this number. So there's 5 divided by 5 is 1. So I don't need to put the 1 because it's ugly. I'm just going to write it like this. If you want to, because it makes you feel safe and happy, you can write it like that. That's fine. You can also write it like this, whatever you want. I would probably put it there just because I'm worried it would intersect with that. Okay? All right, let's look at number 11. Can 5 divide 2? I don't think so. We're not subtracting the big numbers. We're just subtracting the exponents. Let's see. More y's on top, more y's on bottom, 2 more on the bottom, and there's an x on the bottom. And now some of you want to put the x here, but we write things in standard form. First comes x in the alphabet, then comes y. If you don't like the way I did it, you can go 5 minus 7 is negative 2. Can't have a negative exponent, so you bring it to the bottom, and when you bring it to the bottom, it turns positive. I don't care how you get there. Get there without cheating and show your work. Okay? All right, number 13. In order to do this, I first have to acknowledge this. So I distribute it here, and I distribute it there. So 2 squared is 4m to the 4th. And now I look, let's see, I have 4m's and 4m's, so I have 8m's. I have 4n's, and I have the number 4. Okay? If I'm going too fast, feel free to text me with questions, okay? And I could have totally made mistakes, so text me with that too. All right, we got a hot mess happening here. So the first thing I'm going to do is distribute. Distribute, distribute. X 36, Y 48. I'm going to pause real quick and get my glasses. It's getting kind of small. Okay. And then now I look at the bottom. Let's see, I have 4 11 X's on the bottom. So much better with my glasses on. And 6 7 Y's on the bottom. Now I have to decide more on top or more on bottom. That's when I'm dealing with the blue. Okay. So I have 25 more on the top. And, oh, I still have all Y's, so I don't need a bottom. This is what I do. And then Y to the 41. Hopefully I did that right. If I made a mistake, I'm working on my subtracting. I'll work on that. Okay, now let's look at number 17. Now we're dealing with negative exponents. You cannot have negative exponents. That's my issue. I like to circle the negative exponents. Now, some of you go, what about the negative 2? You can have negative numbers, but you cannot have negative exponents. So when you have it on top, you move it to the bottom. So that's u to the first, v to the first. But I have no problem with the negative 2, and I have no problem with the v3 because it's positive. I think about this in a class, right? If I'm not going to punish the whole class if only these 2 are the ones I have problems with. How do I make things better? Most of the time, if you just move their seat, things are a lot better. And once you move their seat, you're happy. Now, the problem is I've got v's on top and v's on bottom, so I have 2 more on the top. I have no problem with my negative 2 because this chapter is about negative exponents. And I don't need the 1, so I'm not going to put it. All right, number 19, what's my issue? The negative exponents. I like to circle them. It keeps me focused. Because then I know what didn't I circle? The 2, the b, and the 3. 2 times 3 is 6, b squared. And everything else has got to go to the bottom. Now that I made it all pretty and positive, let's see if I can do some organizing. Let's see, I have 2 on top, 5 on the bottom, so I have 3 more on the bottom. I have 4 A's on the bottom, and I have a 6. Your homework is going to be to do the right side, okay? So this will be your homework. You will not have homework help. I made this because I wanted you to review exponents, okay? All right, let's go to the next page. Now we're dealing with fractions. Don't worry, don't get scared, okay? I don't know if you remember in a couple homeworks a while back, I think I had like 3/5 times 5. And I said, hey, you got same thing on top, same thing on bottom, bye-bye. I also said, hey, if you had 3/5 times 10, they aren't the same number, but 5 goes into 10 2 times, and 3 times 2 is 6. So it's the same thing. This is on top, this is on bottom. So let's look here. This is on top, and this is on bottom. And if some of you go, I don't like the way it's written, rewrite it. Top and bottom, 9 goes into 3 3 times. 3 times 2 is 6. Okay? Let me say that again. Just multiply the fraction. A lot of you are freaked out just because it's a fraction. Worst comes to worst, you're going to use your darn calculator and it's going to say that, and you'll only lose 1 point for not showing your work. Okay. Now, this is a crazy number, but we're going to worry about that one later. Let's worry about this one right now. Because we're dealing with parentheses, we know we've got to multiply this. So it's going to be 18 over 1 times 7 over 6. Some of you can just go like this and put a 3, but I'm showing my work. 3. So I've got the x. That's not the big deal. But what the heck am I going to do with this? Well, I know this is the same thing, and I'm going to move this x to the 21. I'm going to put it to the side right now. I know this really means 10 to the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th power. So that's really 10 to the 6th to the 7/6. Same thing on top, same thing on bottom, by. It's really 10 to the 7th. And what is 10 to the 7th? A 1 with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, x 21. Do you need to write it out? Yes, you do, because you can. Okay? Now some of you go, well, what if you didn't know that? Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. Look at the bottom number. Whatever that number is, that number will be divisible. Otherwise, I gave you a horrible problem and I need to change it. Okay? So let's focus on this one here. And this is all review. So that's why I'm going over it again. Distribute, distribute. So 9 times 1 over 3 is 3. So I have x cubed. Remember how I told you whatever this number is, you want this to change into it? So I'm going to think, what to the 3rd power would be 125? And I bet you know that if it ends in a 5, it's probably a 5. Don't believe me? Use your calculator. So to the 1/3, by, and you're left with 5 to the 1st power. What's 5 to the 1st? 5. Okay? I'm actually going to stop the video because this is a different type and I want to go more slowly.